guilty of it. You have a neighbor you see all the time and you're like, wow, I don't even know her name. Maybe I should just stop her and find out what her name is. And part of the reason that we tell ourselves we're too busy. But part of our fear, and it is fear, we fear rejection. Maybe she looks different than me. Maybe she's a different ethnicity than me. Maybe she doesn't have kids and I have 3 kids, and maybe we won't be relatable, right? Internally, we have to ask ourselves too, am I afraid of the rejection? Hello and welcome to the Lemonade Mindset Podcast. I'm your host, Nikki Brock-Maruska, your certified professional executive coach, and we are here to talk about coaching. We usually do it over a beverage. Sometimes it's tea, a little coffee, maybe bubbles, and on those tough days, maybe we're doing a martini. But it is your choice. It can be a glass of water. We just welcome you to a safe place to be able to talk about some of life's challenges which happen in our relationships, on our jobs, and in our community. And so this is your time to just relax and have meaningful conversations about where we are in life, what we want, very important about what we want and how we get there. And then just removing some of those stumbling blocks, because life will give us lots of lemons. Our job is to make lemonade, thus the title. So today's conversation is really about activation. It's that time of the year where, the seasons are changing and we just feel something inside of us, right? We feel something that we're looking for a change, perhaps. Maybe it's a change in atmosphere. Maybe it's a change in your clothing, your wardrobe, your friend group, your work situation. And oftentimes we feel it and we have 2 choices. We can either ignore it or we can lean into it and get curious about it. And so when we think about activation, it sometimes starts off in very gentle and subtle ways. Sometimes we feel this need to travel. I did that last year. Last year, for whatever reason, I just felt like that was going to be my year of yes. And I was just going to get on a plane or get in the car, take a road trip. And that's exactly what I did. And I didn't go to any exotic places that you see on somebody's Instagram or dream vacation, because sometimes that's great, but realistically, we can't tap into that energy all the time. So I found myself last year, an opportunity came up and I said yes. And I found myself in Manhattan on a rainy day, in a rickshaw, on my way to the Met, the Metropolitan Museum of New York. And I had the best time. And I saw an exhibit called The Dandies, and it was one of their highest grossing exhibits in history, which says a lot. And on that trip, when I got out of that rickshaw, and it was so scenic, it was like I was in a movie, and I climbed the stairs that you usually see when they show the Met Gala and all the entertainers and movie stars are doing the red carpet. I climbed those same stairs, of course no red carpet, but I climbed those same stairs, and when I got in the lobby, I just took it all in. Because I knew this was a function of the yes that I gave myself last year. And while I was there, I made eye contact with the woman across the room, and she started waving at me. And I was thinking, is she confusing me with somebody else? Because that has happened to me before. And she came over and she was like, hey friend, I've been waiting for you. And I took like a step backwards, and I was thinking, I sized her up, assessed the situation. She didn't look dangerous. And she said, yes, friend, we're going to the exhibit, the Dandy exhibit. And I realized that, when I looked in her face, I saw kindness. And I returned the same expression and I said, yes, I'm so glad we finally connected. Let's go. And this lady, long story short, she treated me and my husband to the exhibit. And because her company sponsored it, and she just, randomly looked in the lobby and chose us. And I have to believe that experience happened because she sensed my yes. My yes led me to the museum. My yes led me to this amazing place that I had never been to. It wasn't on a list per se of things that I wanted to do, but I think that people sense your energy when you are wrapped in yes and sincerity. And I was just, at the time, I was just taking it all in. And so we talked periodically through the exhibit, but she didn't want anything in return. It was just a kind gesture. And I told her it was my first time there, and she was with her mom, and she's just said, this was so amazing. We're so glad to be a part of your story. And I was so glad for there to be a story, because sometimes when you say yes, you just don't really know what that's gonna manifest into. So going back to that lobby experience, when you are wrapped in a yes energy, things just seem to gravitate to you. And it usually is someone else who is witnessing you, feeling your energy, your excitement and enthusiasm. Opportunities seem to come your way. But just like you have the yes energy, there's also no energy. And no energy, I've had that as well. I have plenty of stories of my no energy. But when you have a no energy, it deflects people from you in those instances. And we have, justifiable times where we're wrapped in no because of a bad situation. We're protecting our feelings. Maybe we are uncertain about something and we wrap ourselves in that no. But just know when we do that, sometimes we have to, but sometimes we wear that energy longer than we need to. And it becomes a natural part of our cadence. So when we find ourselves disconnected for some reason, we should ask ourselves, what energy have I wrapped myself in? Is it yes or is it no? And that's so important, because when you get that activation feeling, and it can come for a number of reasons. Maybe it's something that's in you that you're tired of carrying. It might be a burden, a sadness, a frustration. Maybe it's just lack of engagement, right? Sometimes our bodies get tired of carrying the negativity or the disconnect, the stalemate where we start to feel stuck. When we're carrying that too long, our body will send the signals, and it can be triggered by a number of things. You could see someone laughing really hard, kind of like I do. When I'm with my friends and my family, everybody who knows me knows that Nikki laughs hard, and I laugh from my belly. That's one of the things about me that, is good and, not so good in sometimes, but I laugh from the pit of my stomach. And you can hear someone laugh like that, and it will trigger something inside you, and it's an activation. You could be single, and you could see a couple walking through the mall or at a restaurant, and it activates something in you because it says, maybe I want that, or maybe I'm ready for that. But we have a choice, right? Or even somebody at your job, and they're wearing that outfit that you would have worn. They're in that job, in that role. They're presenting something that you're interested in. It activates something in you. And we have a choice in that moment. We can either ignore it or explore it. And it depends on the day and how we feel. But most times if we're not careful, another emotion can come between us and our activation. If the emotion that surfaces is more around envy, disdain, distaste, if we're a little bit jealous, that can turn our activation into something different that doesn't serve us too well. But if we get curious and we start exploring it, now that turns into something different, right? We get closer to that yes energy than we do the no energy. And being curious comes on a number of different levels. Sometimes we've been curious in the past about something, and it's led us to a place where it didn't have the outcome that we had hoped for. We were just like, oh, I've been curious before. I didn't love that. It didn't yield what I thought. Well, we still should be curious about our experiences and why it didn't lead us to what we had hoped. And sometimes we can notice a pattern that maybe I see something, I get curious about it, I lean in, I'm a little uncertain, and then I pull back because I just start feeling anxiety. That's not a bad thing, but it's good to understand that has been your cadence. And maybe this next time you'll have the confidence, the reassurance to be able to lean into this a little bit more this time. So if you were halfway to the goal, and that's when you usually pull back and stop, ask yourself, what would happen if I just continued the process and saw it through? Maybe there was a job that I was interested in, and I got to the point where I looked it up online and I saw all the requirements, and then I just said, you know what, forget it. They're never gonna choose me. If that has been your pattern and you see another job like that open up, ask yourself, if that activation, if that spark is in you, what would happen if this time I actually filled out the job application? Maybe I look up somebody who already has a similar position. Maybe I do a little research. Maybe I, respond on their LinkedIn page to some of their posts. What would happen if I pursued it as if I was going to be successful? And that is the cadence that we have to get into and understand that about ourselves, that am I stopping just before I get to that point of success? If that is your cadence, then it's good to understand that. So when you're activated, again, you can choose to ignore the feeling or you can choose to lean into it. And like I said, when I said this was going to be my year of yes, that was my activation to lean in deeper to opportunities. I joined a business group and I was really excited about it. And I'm continuously leaning into other opportunities, doing this podcast more consistently, right? There are things that are calling us, and if you're honest with yourself, you will probably notice a pattern. And if you get really curious and courageous, ask yourself why. Why does this certain thing keep speaking to me? Why is it that when I see a couple, I get this little feeling inside me? Maybe you had a bad breakup. Maybe you never want to see that person in life again. And that's fine, but you're still living with yourself. And if something keeps coming up for you when you see a couple, then perhaps that's something that you really do want. Maybe you really do want to be in a relationship. But you got to be honest with yourself and say, yes, that's what I want. And that's where, coming back to that yes energy, That's where everything begins. It is the activation of being able to say, am I ignore it or explore it? Ignore, explore. I want you to think of that all week this week. I want you to think, am I ignoring something or am I exploring it? And whatever I choose, why? If it's something that a hobby that you want to explore, even if it's traveling, even if you have a neighbor, and we are all guilty of it. You have a neighbor you see all the time and you're like, wow, I don't even know her name. Maybe I should just stop her and find out what her name is. And part of the reason that we tell ourselves we're too busy. But part of our fear, and it is fear, we fear rejection. Maybe she looks different than me. Maybe she's a different ethnicity than me. Maybe she doesn't have kids and I have 3 kids, and maybe we won't be relatable, right? Internally, we have to ask ourselves too, am I afraid of the rejection? Is that the thing that's standing in my way? Is that what's silencing the activation I feel? That's a lot. It's a lot. It's a lot to carry. But in those quiet times, which I highly encourage, find the quiet time, and this might be your quiet time. Just having a little beverage. Today I got coffee. Today I had tea already. But maybe this is your quiet time to ask yourself, okay, what am I ignoring? What is activated in me every time this year? Or every time I see something, I just get a feeling about it. What is it that I need to explore? And am I afraid to explore it? Am I afraid? And why am I fearful? Is it rejection? Is it past failures? What is it? If it's something authentically that's going to build the person that you are and be in alignment with your purpose, lean into it. And here's another thing. I have a client who we talked about this on a number of occasions. Sometimes we're afraid that it's going to cause disruption. Again, when I talk about the yes and these experiences, it's always in a positive light, right? We're not talking about disruptions that's negative or going to hurt other people in a very dark and intentional way. That is not what we're talking about. So I'm not telling you, to go spend your life savings or do something risky like that. Nikki did not tell you to do that. Let's be clear. But we're afraid of disruption because people expect you to do something, all the time. Maybe over the holiday. Maybe, one of our many holidays that are coming up. Maybe people expect you to be the host and to do all the entertaining, but really maybe you want to do something else. We have to be careful that in our curiosity, our interest in exploring things, that we're not people pleasing. And that's many times why people just ignore that activation, that spark in them. Is because we're so busy people pleasing that we tend to lose ourselves willfully in the expectation that other people have for us. And that's where we have to kind of start exploring boundaries, right? Some healthy boundaries that allows us to be authentically ourselves, right? That's what this whole life is about. So, what does all this mean, right? What does all this mean in this ideal of lemonade? The difference between lemons and lemonade is just sweetness. And I define that as understanding, courage, discernment, purpose, right? That is the sweetness. That's what transitions us and helps us pivot from sour circumstances to something so much better and so much more gratifying. We deserve to have a good life, right? But we are responsible for our own joy. I believe that our bodies want to be in a joyful state. Mind, body, spirit, all of that wants to be in a joyful state. And our nervous system sends our bodies signals. It sends the body signals like, hey, we need something more. We need something different. I need you to try that. And then what signals are we giving back to our body? We actually negotiate with ourselves, and it's not crazy. Yeah, I know I've done it. I know you have too. We negotiate with ourselves. I am going to do it. I'm not going to do it. And our body oftentimes tells us, sends us signals, because our bodies are very smart, sends us signals that I need something different. I need change, right? But we start thinking about our past experiences, and sometimes we become afraid because of those past failures. Well, this is what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to take a little time. Like I said, this podcast might be your time. It might be 5 minutes, 10 minutes of journaling, and ask yourself, what am I feeling activated to do? What do I feel like my body is kind of telling me to explore? Maybe even ask yourself, what am I ignoring? If I have a talent that I'm ignoring, and people tell me all the time, you need to do something with that, ask yourself, why aren't I doing it? And if that's a good enough reason. If it is your last day on this earth, and you had a talent you didn't explore, what would that feel like, right? I think we have an obligation to lean into the things that have shaped us over the years, right? And not that you have to do it as a full-time career, but we should at least explore it, own it, lean into it. If it's a relationship you want, how long are you gonna ignore that desire of being in a relationship? Because you've convinced yourself there's no good men in this world, or there's no more good women in this world. And that's not true, because I've had good men tell me women don't want to be married. I've had women say there's no good men in this world. And I know for a fact that is not true. They might not be where you think they are. But if we start showing up authentically, wrapped in yes, I believe what you're looking for will gravitate to you. And that's just me. But I have clients that this has worked for. I had a client who told me, Nikki, I don't want to be the CEO of the company. What I want in 2 years, I want to be married with a child. I want a family. That's my priority. Her daughter's going to be 2, and she is engaged. I don't promise those kind of results. I'm just saying, when you show up and you do the work and you're honest about yourself, it's just amazing how things just gravitate in your direction. So this season, if you feel activated, but we gotta pay attention too. If you're walking, you're driving through the city with your sunglasses on and you're not paying attention to anything, of course you're not gonna be activated. It means that let me put all the other things aside and let me just take it in, right? That's what I did in that rickshaw in New York. I was taking in the sights, I was paying attention, all of my senses were activated. That is when you are pulling in more information than you're putting out. Be willing to pull information in, because you will see something, hear something, maybe even eat something. You might be at a restaurant and have an experience, right? Whatever it is, let's just commit to pay attention. And when you feel that activation feeling, or maybe start journaling about what you feel activated to do. Maybe it's to travel. Maybe it's to meet new people. Whatever that is, just be willing to explore it. Even if on paper, it will still serve you well. I'm a big advocate for journaling. So, activation. What are you activated to do? And let me say this before we wrap up. Nobody can do this for you but you. Nobody can do this for you. Your parents, your friends, your co-workers, your boss, nobody can do this for you but you. And that's a really good position to be in. You are in control. You're the boss of this. And whatever you decide, it is your choice. But these days and these months go by so fast. You don't want to be sitting in the exact same space saying that, man, I ignored that feeling. At least if you explore the feeling, you will learn something about yourself. So that is my talk with you today in the Lemonade Mindset podcast. I hope it gave you something to think about. I hope it gave you something to sit with. If this kind of sits with you in a different way, if you have a thought, a comment, please drop it in the description. We would love to hear it. If there's a certain subject matter that you want us to talk about from a coaching perspective, over a beverage, of course, put that in the description also. I talk about so many things with clients that I absolutely love this. I absolutely love it. And I am honored to be a part of people's growth process, because if you keep showing up here, you will grow. You will grow. You will expand your thinking and your mindset and come to this conclusion that there's more in you than you give yourself credit for. Again, thank you for being here. Come back next week. Share it with a friend. This is the Lemonade Mindset podcast. I am so honored to be your host. Join us again. Give us some feedback. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe. We'll be back again. Thank you.